talk about.
It's quite poor. Hello and welcome, my name is Ian. This channel is all about music and art, and this is where we talk about music and art. And in this video I'm going to look back at what's happening regarding music streaming in the UK. And over the last couple of months, the UK government's Digital Culture, Media and Sports Committee have been looking into the way that streaming platforms and large record companies manage payments to songwriters, musicians and performers. And on the 15th of October 2020, Parliament published a news article stating that this particular committee would inquire into the impact of streaming on the future of the music industry. The article stated that the inquiry will consider whether the government should take action to protect the industry from piracy in the wake of steps taken by the EU on copyright and intellectual property rights. I knew that some high-profile musicians were giving evidence to this committee, and the first of these meetings was on the 24th of November and another meeting on the 8th of December. Now these meetings were long, lasting over 3 hours each. So what I've done is I've edited them down into shorter videos, and I have put direct links to the questions in the description down below, which will make it easy for you if you want to look at a specific question and not watch the whole thing. It's worth providing a background to the witnesses giving evidence. So in the first session from December the 4th, we have Maria Forte, who is the Managing Director at Maria Forte Music Services. Maria has worked in the music industry for the last 3 decades. She began at Virgin Music Publishers and in the late 70s in an administrative capacity, where she remained for 14 years. The last 5 years of that period as General Manager until the sale of Virgin to the EMI Group. She worked with many contemporary bands, writers including The Police, Human League, Culture Club, Soul II Soul, Clash, Stereophonics. Thereafter she spent 4 years at EMI Music Publishing running the copyright department as well as establishing the sampling department. She continues to work with Virgin Music catalogue as well as a rich and varied catalogue belonging to EMI. In July 2006 she created Maria Forte Music Services. Her clients include Warner Chappell Music for the implementation of their Pan-European Digital Rights Initiative, and she's worked with a number of artists and is currently working with Radiohead through her Warner Chappell consultancy. Kwame Kwaten is a manager, record producer and owner of Ferocious Talent, which he started in 2014. He works with new acts like Sarah Walk, Blue Lab Beats and Caitlin Scarlett. He also acts as international consultant and manages and advises international acts, brands, actors and actresses on the music business in Europe. And José Luis Silvano is Director General at AIE, which is a management organisation for music performers and musicians located in Spain and has headquarters in Madrid, Barcelona and Seville, and works on the provision of the law on intellectual property. AIE manages the intellectual property rights for its music performers. All of the sessions were chaired by Julian Knight, and the complete list of committee members and the relevant links are in the description down below. Now this recording is made in agreement with the UK Parliament Terms and Conditions, which state that I cannot alter the video or the audio of the recording in any way. I can't use this material for satire or use it on websites or social media platforms that promote, encourage and facilitate illegal activity and encourage hatred and antisocial behaviour. So here is part 3 of session 1 into the economics of music streaming.
Kevin Brennan.
Thank you, Chair. Jose,
Earlier, I think you mentioned that money comes from the equitable remuneration right in Spain to the UK via PPL. How much money would come each year to the UK from Spain as a result of that right existing there?
Well, it's about 15 or a little bit less, 13%. Depends on the amount of music, because
someone told me it was about £800,000. Is that right? Right ballpark figure?
A year?
Yeah.
Per year? Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, when you think about it, that's quite a significant amount of money, isn't it? And if this right existed, you know, across, for example, the European Union or in other countries as well, potentially, given the UK's strength in the music industry, it could actually be a very significant earner for UK-based musicians coming through PPL, couldn't it?
I can tell you that PPL, for instance, in the old models of broadcasting, public performance, etc., they are collecting more than 50 million pounds a year for music, for British music.
Okay.
Then I think if this right exists around the world, and I think is finally stabilized in the world, I think we'll collect a big amount of money for the British musician, because they are one of the biggest markets in the world.
Do you think equitable remuneration might be the simplest and quickest way to actually get some money, if I put it this way, in crude terms, out of corporate pockets and into the pockets of the working class?
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Yeah, I think is the most reliable system to put, because you know that we are used to negotiating on behalf of performers the price, to fix tariffs, to negotiate, to distribute. We have the database, the information, and it is very fast. As we got agreement with Spotify, the last one, 3, 4, 5 years ago. And immediately we start to distribute to the performers, and we are paying every year more than, let me check, but more than 7,000 performers a year.
Okay.
Most of them, 45,000, are session musicians that nobody pays apart from this equitable remuneration.
Okay, thanks for that. And we mentioned earlier on, you mentioned earlier on, $2.5 billion in what's called black boxes in the industry. I mean, and basically for the benefit of the committee, what you're talking about there is basically money that can't be attributed. Is that correct? To for some reason or other to artists or songwriters and composers, etc.
Yeah, that means there was the digital music news, I think, 1 year ago. Yeah.
And this is this is also the same thing as the so-called leaky pipe that Kwame was mentioning as well. Is it? It's just basically the money flows out of the leaky pipe into the black box. What is it? Would it be quite easy to fix that, or instead of it being kept by the record companies, perhaps should thought be given perhaps of creating a fund out of that, which could go towards maybe up and coming, new talent that's coming up through the industry, or perhaps towards some of those who've been in the industry for a long time but aren't getting much out of the pot. What do you think about that?
I think it's easier.
Sorry, go on, Jose. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's easier to make clarity, if you want to say that, with the money for performers. But I think if you try to fix this problem with the labels, I think we can manage and we can do it. I think in between the publisher, CMOs, authors, performers, we are able to manage this.
So it's doable. Yeah, Maria.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say a couple of things on that. First of all, equitable remuneration, yes, it would be very good if that money went directly through the CMO, which is PPL in our country, who have a very good methodology, and they also would, so it's featured artists and non-featured artists. That's the important thing here. If there was massive resistance against that, then, and it has to go through the labels, for example, the rate needs to change. It needs to be a 50-50 license rate and not a royalty rate.
Okay,
so that's
understood.
The first thing I want to say. The second thing was black box. You do hold, CMOs do hold black boxes, but then they are dispersed after a period of time, and PPL they will hold the money for 6 years, and then it's basically paid out on a pro rata basis to the members.
Okay. Jose, just to jump back to you for 1 second, am I right in saying that in Spain the equitable remuneration right actually is not 50-50 but 100% to the musicians, or is that wrong?
Yeah, it's on top of the contract. It's not split with the labels. It's only for performers. In the law, it's recognized in that way.
Okay.
And then we negotiate directly on behalf of the performers.
Okay.
And the labels, they have their own way to receive some money. Yeah.
Okay.
It's not 50-50 in that case. Yeah.
Thanks. That's interesting to know. Kwame, Could I just ask you about the black box issue which you raised in relation to the leaky pipe and so on? Is that something that, as managers, you're ever able to get your hands on some of that money for your artists? Is that part of a negotiation ever with record labels where you go to them and say, we know you've got this black box money, how about giving that to some of our artists? Does that happen?
Well, the thing is, black box represents so many different pools of income. So it's not something that sort of sits in the sky that is necessarily just record label. Sometimes an artist, and again, this is also part of the problem, sometimes an artist doesn't know to register, you know, themselves correctly, PPL wise or,
right.
You know, whatever. And so as a result, what happens is their income is sat there. And if they do not, and I've got experience of this, I've saved one guy who, and all I'll say is, from me advising him and looking after him over a certain amount of time, he earned over 100,000 just by signing forms correctly.
Which you know, probably is not uncommon because artists don't, you know, or often don't think about this as the first thing they're thinking about when they get up in the morning. They're probably thinking about writing a song, maybe. My question really was, though, do managers, though, ever go to a record company? I understand what you did there was an amazingly tremendous service for that artist, but do managers ever go to record companies and say, we know this money exists, it's been reported publicly at $2.5 billion across the industry. Do they ever go to the record company and say, give us a slice of that for our artists, even if you can't attribute it, at least we can give it to some of our artists? Does that ever happen?
No, I've never gone, because again, you know, we are, as managers, just being completely real here, as managers, we are sort of in a tunnel that is very much like, okay, we have to earn for our artists. And I know it sounds kind of crazy. It sounds like, well, surely if that money's there, you should go and access it. I
know that there's some questions coming up about what the manager's role is now, so I won't go on into that too much because there's further questions which other colleagues are going to ask about it. But one question is some people have been a bit critical sometimes of the Music Managers Forum for having a close relationship with Spotify and YouTube and so on in terms of, you know, finances. What would your response be to that criticism?
Nah. I mean, you know, the MMF, I mean, we give as much as we get. And when I say that, I mean, you know, you can be sponsored by somebody, but you can disagree wholeheartedly with something. You know, it's you know, I don't buy that at all.
Okay.
At all. I think that, and we do quite often. And, you know, Spotify will come around and they'll say, okay, you disagree with us on that, and we have to have a look at that. We believe that actually by being close to them, that actually we might be able to influence, you know, change there. It's no use not having a discussion with someone. It's kind of, you know, that's kind of Cold War. I'm not going past that.
Okay, Maria, can I ask you a couple of questions quickly? You mentioned earlier on about, well, other sorts of streaming services were mentioned earlier on, like Netflix, which obviously show, high-end television content and films, etc. Why is it that pretty much all the big streaming services in music offer exactly the same product? In Netflix, you don't have all the same films as you can access on Amazon Prime or other streaming services. Why is music different, do you think?
I think well, it's what record labels deliver. They deliver their entire catalogue, and they deliver it to every streaming service because they want to maximise on the availability of that catalogue.
So what we were talking about earlier on...
Not everybody uses the same subscription service. I mean, I have Spotify, and I know the people who have Spotify and Amazon Music. Apple Music.
Sure.
But you're maximising the availability of a catalogue.
So just to follow up on the questions, Maria, that were asked earlier on by Damien
I did
Hines
want to mention
and Steve Bryant. I'll just press you on this and then come back and mention what you like. The point I'm trying to make is that what you've just said is that the reason for that, the question that was asked earlier on, why everybody offers the same thing at the same price, is because that's what the record labels require. of those major streaming services, that everything is available universally, and in effect that means that they can't differentiate the products that they offer except in the most minor way. Well,
no, I wouldn't say playlists are minor, or Spotify basically including credits. I think they were the first to it, and other now digital services are also showing the credits, being able to search by composer. That's something that's coming, and then all these things and nuances of a service. They're trying to make their service different to basically attract the consumers.
On the pricing side, what you were talking about earlier on about older consumers, and that is changing, isn't it, quite rapidly, and that older people like me, for example, are subscribers to Spotify. Is there a possibility that some of those older, the reason given often for the price being kept at the same nominal price for the last decade or more at $9.99 is that there was a very high level of price elasticity amongst young consumers, if you want to put it that way, in economics terms. But older consumers are more likely, are they not, to be willing to pay a bit more? Is that something that could be used to try and generate more revenue?
Well, potentially, but it's kind of like adding a tax on old people, isn't it? I mean, you saying giving a greater price to older people.
Or perhaps offering a differentiated service of some kind for them. Anyway,
possibly a differentiated service. But, the playlists, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? I have had Spotify for a long time. I still listen to Spotify. I listen to albums because I'm old-fashioned. To me, that's albums have been created as a body of works, and that's how I always listen to an album. But I have a son who has endless playlists, and he won't leave Spotify because he doesn't want to have to lose his playlist. So it's interesting, that sort of. I did want to say about Black Box, though, which is in publishing agreements. It's in standard current publishing agreements. Black Box is usually a black box clause in there. That it will be distributed on a pro rata basis with the catalogue to the composers. There is a split of black box in a publishing contract. So okay. I just want to make that clear. Okay.
Can I just ask you? You did mention earlier on about the way the publishing pie is sort of more and more being divided up. I think we've all noticed a trend in recent years, certainly if you ever attend the IVAs, that you at one point have 12 people on the stage claiming all to have written the same song. Can you just explain, for the benefit of the committee and perhaps people who might not be aware of this trend, what's going on there?
Well, there's a number of things, actually. I mean, the easiest explanation is firstly, sampling is quite prevalent, and when you sample a song and you give up a share of the copyright, you've immediately got the songwriters of that sampled song in your song. So that can be a way in which suddenly you get 17 songwriters, and then there's the way somebody can write a song, and then the producer, who is a producer-writer, will get it, and they add bits to it, and there can be a number of people in the room who will be given a percentage, and then often, if it's a major artist, they will require a percentage of the song, irrespective of whether or not they contributed to it.
Right. So it's just the old maxim of add a word, take a third on stilts, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad Dolly Parton didn't give Elvis a part of her song.
Wise woman. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you. Julie Elliott.
Thank you, Chair. I want to move on to the role of managers. Kwame, we heard in our last session quite a bit from artists about how the advent of streaming had changed their lives and the way they work and the impact it had had. I'm very interested to hear how the role of managers has changed with the impact of streaming, and also how it's affected your approach to negotiations with record companies, record labels, and also how you ensure you always get the best deal given the impact of streaming.
Wow, okay.
Just a few things.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, it's fine. Okay, so management. interesting. I know old managers, and they will often tell me about what it was like. And there are many similarities, but then there are many differences. So, for instance, now, you know, a manager has to deal with, amongst other things, A&R, because we're called on to help make the record now with the artist, you know, advise them through the process early on, because artists are no longer, I guess, I'll put it this way, the artist's early time on working on a record is without funding from a major record label or an indie. Generally, you almost go at it as though you're self-releasing. So that's the first thing. So now A&R, deal making, new tech, social media. Social media, I know management companies now that have got a whole social media department, you know. Touring, obviously, which was back then but is now. You've got brand deals now as well because of social media. So, and navigating that, which again, we're talking back in the day, wasn't email. Now obviously there is. So people can reach you easier, which is great, but people can reach you easier, which is awful as well, because your inbox is, if you are having a hit record, any one of these, right? If you're having a hit record, your inbox can go from, I don't know, 150 to 200 emails a day to maybe 600 in a day, you know. So then you've got to employ somebody to help sift through that so that you get the most important ones. Artist care, mental health right now, obviously as well, it's a huge thing. So what we're saying is, putting it simply, an artist manager does have to do a lot, and arguably a lot more now because of what is in front of us, you know. And also the simple truth is because many artists can upload themselves to any of the streaming services. In order for your artist to cut through, you simply have to do that much more work. I would say back in the day, you would have to, the sieving process was that you would have to get a deal first, which meant that there were a lot of people that didn't get through that net. Now, I'm not saying it's good, right, wrong. I'm saying that now, most people can do a song at home in their bedroom, upload it or get it uploaded, and then worry about how to either collect it or whatever, like, without even a manager. So your job and the basket of the suite of things that you have to do is that much larger. Definitely. And I would say that having been a manager for over 15 years, I would say what I used to have to do and what I have to have in place now, completely different. And by the way, that is including making sure that, you know what, royalty-wise, my artist is every last thing has been looked at because of the very things that we're talking about. So the leaky pipes, etc. We have to follow up on all that.
Okay, thank you, Kwame. Julie Elliott, your next question.
Yeah, can I want to follow on that. We heard a lot about transparency and lack of transparency at the last session. Do you feel that people, you know, the streaming services, record labels, collecting societies, etc., give you enough information and things are transparent enough to ensure you to advise your clients as effectively as possible?
I don't think there's transparency all round, and that's not me dodging the question against streaming services. I just think that transparency is a major issue.
And finally, COVID's affected everyone this year, and music managers are usually paid on commission. How's COVID impacted managers and the rest of an art support system specifically, and what support has been available to you through this period?
Okay, how has COVID affected me? All right, so I had COVID. I was in hospital with COVID. And how has it affected me? Well, if you're self-employed as a manager, then you have to kind of make sure, someone at the door, can you believe it? You have to make sure, hold on 1 sec. I can't. What can I do? Okay. You just have to make sure that.
How have you been paid? Have you had the support you needed?
I'm lucky in that many of my artists stream well. So I'm lucky in that many of my artists stream well. So I do get paid from that.
And what support have government given you any support during this period?
They have definitely.
Okay.
But yeah.
Thank you, Kwame.
Thank you, Julie. So thanks very much for watching. The next video will be a continuation of this first session.